All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're taking on the role of lead investigator to do a complete, forensic, and totally impartial breakdown of some pretty explosive claims. These come from a recent report by USA Talks, focusing on a sudden, highly contested blackout during an FBI oversight hearing. Now, the mainstream broadcast called it a simple technical glitch, but the source material we're looking at today, it alleges this was a deliberate maneuver to conceal critical evidence. We're going to look strictly at the claims, the timeline, and the unedited evidence presented in this dossier to understand exactly what the source says happened the moment those cameras supposedly stopped rolling.
Now, look closely at this quote. According to the report, the live TV feed cut to a grainy, static-filled screen, and a voice was caught whispering, "off the record." Then the screen reportedly cleared just enough to show a high-tension courtroom, the slam of a gavel, and a pale-faced senator leaning in to demand, "We need a recess, now." Right after those words, the feed just cut to black. That 15-second clip was broadcast to millions. But it's the 60 minutes of silence immediately following that statement that the USA Talks report really zeroes in on. The source claims that the unedited footage of this lost hour has finally surfaced, and what's on it directly challenges the official institutional narrative.
Section 1. The 60-minute blackout. What happened when the camera stopped? Let's map out the exact timeline here as we examine the specific claims about that missing hour. The report insists this was absolutely not a malfunction, but a frantic scramble. First, you have the live public broadcast promising transparency regarding the FBI's targeting of political figures. Second, that abrupt 15-second cut. And third, the 60 minutes of total silence. While the mainstream news networks just moved on, citing procedural delays and wrapping up their broadcast for the day, the dossier alleges this was a deliberate blackout. The source claims the unedited footage from this period shows a raw, unfiltered reaction from officials who genuinely believed they were safe behind the curtain of a technical difficulty. During that exact window of silence, the report claims a highly significant event took place. Documents, actual physical evidence that the source states had been missing for over 18 months, were physically placed directly onto the committee chair's desk. According to the dossier, this was the exact moment the entire room went cold. The unedited footage reportedly shows a frantic and incredibly disorganized atmosphere. It's a massive contrast to that sanitized procedural perfection they usually present to us. The source argues this physically submitted evidence caused a total, real-time collapse of the official narrative.
Section 2. The jet contradiction, analyzing the flight manifests.
We're pivoting now to the exact physical evidence that allegedly triggered the panic in that room. Let's break down this contradiction completely neutrally. On the left side, you have the official testimony denying these visits. During public questioning about the use of non-governmental aircraft, FBI top brass testified under penalty of perjury, treating the whole thing as just a routine audit. But on the right side, you have the unedited manifest claims placing key federal agents at those exact unacknowledged locations. The dossier frames this not as some simple record-keeping error, but as a physical contradiction of their entire sworn testimony. 7. That is the exact number of minutes the official transcript labels as a brief pause for document review. But you know what? The source analyzes the unedited footage very differently. They claim those 7 minutes were actually filled with a suffocating silence and a visible psychological breakdown among the officials. The report specifically notes the FBI's lead counsel leaning over, his hand literally shaking as he adjusted his glasses just to read the fine print of the manifest. This very human reaction, the source argues, is the true indicator that the so-called secret vault had been kicked wide open. Without the sanitizing filters of the major networks, the unedited footage reportedly captured frantic whispers between lawyers during this untelevised recess. The source quotes one official urgently asking, "How did they get the tail numbers?" and another replying, "It doesn't matter how, just stop the line of questioning." According to the dossier's analysis, this audio right here is the smoking gun. It's presented as an outright admission that the flight manifest data was totally accurate and that the immediate institutional goal was simply to stop the truth from being explored on the record. Section 3. Tracking the Patel Files. The digital forensics. We are now shifting our investigation to the second major piece of evidence detailed in the report, and it brings us to a crucial question. What actually triggered the panic during the supposed lunch break? The public was told the hearing was just paused for a meal. The unedited footage, however, paints a vastly different picture, bridging us directly into the forensic digital data that was reportedly presented in the room behind closed doors. The source breaks down the technical presentation that was deliberately kept from the public. Step 1, a digital presentation was loaded onto the screen. Step 2, a map of digital pings was revealed. Step 3, these pings tracked the highly sensitive Patel files through various servers that were officially supposed to be perfectly secure and untraceable. The dossier states that the sheer weight of this technical data being presented in real time was the true reason the committee chair called for the suspension of the feed. According to the report, that supposed lunch break was actually a frantic, high-stakes scramble. These officials weren't eating, they were desperately trying to find out who had leaked the decryption keys. The source describes this as far more than just a legal disagreement. It was a forensic nightmare for the agency. The evidence presented on the unedited tape supposedly proved that the wall of digital secrecy had been totally breached. Section 4. The legal fallout. Emergency motions and protective orders. Treating this strictly as an analysis of the source's claims, let's look at the specific actions captured here. The footage reportedly shows a frantic huddle at the back of the chamber with government lawyers who weren't even officially assigned to the committee. It highlights constant glances from witnesses toward an unlisted shadow figure in a gray suit, like they were looking for cues on how to answer. It notes the immediate filing of emergency protective orders, and finally, it points out the aggressive use of bridge statements by key figures to purposefully steer the conversation far away from the unmarked files. The absolute severity of these stakes is captured in this off-mic quote from a senator, which is heavily highlighted in the report. If this is true, we have a constitutional crisis on our hands. A crisis implies a systemic failure, and the dossier argues that the unedited footage shows a desperate, real-time attempt to prevent that realization from hitting the front pages. To understand exactly how the report claims they manage this crisis, we have to look at the definition of a protective order. Now, while this is normally a standard legal tool, the source alleges that figures like Blumenthal and Welch use these emergency motions specifically to sanitize the record before it could be permanently archived. According to the dossier, the goal wasn't to establish truth at all. It was to aggressively gatekeep the institution by legally deleting the evidence of the contradiction, an alleged cover-up executed before the public could ever lay eyes on it. Section 5. The unedited aftermath. The forensic trail. 15. Just 15 crucial minutes of unedited tape. The official record is always going to show a hearing adjourned due to time constraints, but the source notes that legal experts are already suggesting these 15 minutes, the ones containing the jet contradiction and those digital pings, will they create a forensic trail strong enough to trigger a completely separate investigation. The truth, the report argues, has finally moved beyond the current committee's control. The dossier describes a distinct fleeing effect that is currently taking place in Washington. Officials who previously defended the agency's narrative are reportedly backpedaling, publicly distancing themselves and claiming they were somehow misled by the initial reports. The source points to this as definitive proof that the unedited footage has forced their hand, causing the institutional wall of silence to actively crumble right in front of us. Which brings us to the final verdict, and a question for you to weigh based on the evidence presented in this analysis. What was really on that mysterious USB that caused the sudden recess? Do you view the jet contradiction highlighted in the report as just a simple administrative mistake, or is it actual evidence of a calculated cover-up? The USA Talks dossier claims the blackout failed, and the true aftermath is only just beginning. As we close out this explainer, I want you to consider the sheer implications of the unedited truth and ask yourself, what else might be hidden behind the next technical glitch?